Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My partner and I saved for years to finally buy our first home. We're not rich people. We both work regular jobs, me at a customer service call center and my partner in retail management. Every penny we saved went into our down payment fund. We gave up vacations, ate at home, drove our old cars until they practically begged for mercy. When we finally got approved for the mortgage on this new build, I cried. It was in a development on the edge of town, nothing fancy, but it was ours. The neighborhood was still being built up, with construction happening on a few streets over. Our house backed up to a natural wash with a road running alongside it, and beyond that was another row of houses. We moved in 3 months ago. The whole process was exhausting but exciting. Unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, figuring out where everything should go. For the first time in our lives, we had enough space that we didn't feel cramped. We had a kitchen with an island, a living room with big windows that let in natural light. Then yesterday I checked the mail and found a handwritten letter. No return address, just our address on the front. I opened it while walking back to the house. The letter started friendly enough, congratulating us on the new home. Then it got weird. This person who signed the letter is my neighbor from the street behind us, explained that she could see directly into our house from her living room and backyard. She described watching us walk around our kitchen, watching us open our refrigerator. She said that while she was happy to have new neighbors, she would prefer not to have a view into our home. Then she suggested we get blinds or curtains for our privacy. I read it 3 times. My partner came home from work and found me sitting at the kitchen table staring at this letter. They asked what was wrong because I looked upset. I handed them the letter without saying anything. My partner read it, and their expression changed from confusion to disbelief to anger. They said this woman had been watching us, and now she was complaining about it. I agreed and said that apparently our existence in our own home was inconvenient for her. My partner pointed out that we had curtains in the bedrooms and bathroom. The kitchen and living room had windows facing our backyard, which were normal windows that every house has. I nodded and mentioned that there was a wash and a road between our houses, so she wasn't exactly next door. My partner said that meant she was going out of her way to look into our house, and somehow that was supposed to be our problem. We talked about it for hours. The audacity of this woman. We bought this house. We're paying a mortgage. The windows came with the house exactly when they are. Every other house in the neighborhood has the same large windows. It's part of the design. I decided to walk around our backyard to see exactly what this neighbor could see. From our yard, I could see her house across the wash and road. If I really stared, I could probably see into her windows too, but why would I? I have better things to do than watch strangers in their homes. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This woman had been watching us for months, watching us cook dinner, watching us get snacks, watching us live our lives. When instead of maybe closing her own curtains or not staring into other people's homes, she decided to write us a letter demanding we change our house for her comfort. My partner asked what I was going to do. I said nothing. I wasn't buying curtains for my kitchen because some creep couldn't mind her own business. My partner said good because this whole situation was ridiculous. The next morning I was making breakfast when I noticed something. From our kitchen window, I had a clear view across to the houses behind us, and sure enough, I could see directly into one living room where a woman was standing looking in our direction. I waved. Big, enthusiastic wave. She immediately moved away from her window. I called out to my partner and said I'd found our letter writer. They asked what happened. I explained that she'd been staring at our house again, so I waved at her and she ran away from her window. My partner started laughing and suggested that maybe we should wave every time we saw her watching. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Every single time I catch her looking at our house, I wave. Sometimes I smile really big. Sometimes I hold up my coffee mug in a cheers gesture. My partner does the same thing. Yesterday I was cooking dinner and saw her in her yard, clearly positioned where she could see into our kitchen. I opened the refrigerator, grabbed what I needed, and waved at her while holding a package of chicken. She turned around and went back into her house. This morning I checked the mail. Another letter from our neighbor. This one was much shorter and much angrier. She wrote that our behavior was harassing her and that she was considering calling the homeowners association about our lack of window coverings. I showed my partner the letter. They said she was threatening to call the homeowners association just for us not having curtains. I said that apparently being visible in our own home was now harassment. My partner said I should let her call. We weren't violating any rules. Every house has windows. We weren't doing anything inappropriate. We were just existing. I agreed and added that we were also just waving at our neighbor when she stared at us. My partner grinned and said that was just being friendly. I decided to write a response letter. I kept it polite but direct. I thanked her for her concern about our privacy, but explained that we were comfortable with our window situation. I noted that if she was uncomfortable with the view into our home, she was welcome to adjust her own window coverings or simply not look at our house. I mentioned that we'd noticed her watching our home frequently and found it concerning. I suggested that perhaps we could all just respect each other's privacy by not staring into each other's homes. I mailed it today. I don't know if she'll respond. This is our house. We worked too hard and saved too long to let some entitled neighbor make us feel uncomfortable in our own home. My partner and I made a decision. Our curtains stay open. We're going to cook in our kitchen, live in our living room, and enjoy the home we earned. And if our neighbor wants to keep watching, that's her choice and her problem. Maybe I'll even do some dancing in the kitchen while making dinner tonight, just to really give her something to complain about. Grandpa was the one who taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with homework, and never missed a single one of my school events. So when his birthday was coming up, I wanted to do something special for him. 6 weeks before the big day, I got this idea to make him a custom phone case with pictures of all his grandkids on it. He's always complaining about how he can never remember which grandkid is which in photos, because there are so many of us, so I figured this would be perfect. He could look at his phone and see all 9 of us every single day. I created a group chat with all my siblings and cousins and sent out the first message. I told everyone that Grandpa's birthday was coming up in 6 weeks and that I was making him a custom phone case with all our pictures on it. I asked them to please send me a good picture of themselves within the next 4 weeks so I could get it ordered in time, and mentioned that this was going to mean a lot to him. I waited and waited. 2 weeks went by and I only had pictures from 4 people. That's when I sent the second message. I reminded everyone that I still needed pictures from 5 people and warned them that if they didn't send me a picture, they would be replaced with a picture of my dog. I told them I was serious and that I needed the pictures within the next 2 weeks. 3 of my cousins responded to that one. They all told me to just screenshot something from their Instagram profiles. One said they had tons of good pictures, and I could pick whatever I wanted. I didn't respond to any of them. They had phones. They could send me a picture. It would take them 30 seconds. I wasn't going to scroll through their social media trying to find the perfect picture when they couldn't even be bothered to send me one themselves. Another week and a half went by. I had gotten 2 more pictures, but those same 3 cousins still hadn't sent anything. The day before I absolutely had to place the order, I sent one final message. I told everyone it was their last chance and that I was ordering the phone case tomorrow. I made it clear that if they didn't send me a picture in the next 24 hours, they would be replaced with pictures of my dog. I emphasized that this was their final warning. Nothing. Radio silence from those 3. So I did exactly what I said I would do. I put together the phone case with the 6 pictures I had received and filled in the remaining 3 spots with pictures of my dog. One of him wearing a little sombrero from Cinco de Mayo, one of him at the pumpkin patch sitting next to a huge pumpkin, and one of him in a ridiculous chicken costume from Halloween. The phone case arrived 2 days before Grandpa's birthday party. It looked perfect. I couldn't wait to give it to him. The day of the party came, and the whole family gathered at Grandpa's house. We had cake, we told stories, and then it was time for presents. Grandpa opened mine last. He asked what it was, and I told him it was a phone case. I encouraged him to open it up. He pulled it out of the box and immediately started laughing. His eyes crinkled up the way they always do when he finds something genuinely funny. He asked if that was my dog in a sombrero. I confirmed that it sure was. He was looking at each picture, pointing at us and saying our names to make sure he got everyone right. That's when the three cousins who hadn't sent pictures realized they weren't on the case. One of them asked where her picture was. Another asked why his face wasn't on there. The third demanded to know why I had put my dog on there instead of them. I explained that I had sent 3 reminders asking for pictures, and they had never sent me anything. One of them shot back that they had told me to just grab something from their Instagrams. I reminded them that I had told them if they didn't send a picture, they would be replaced with a dog. They had 6 weeks. Another cousin accused me of being too lazy to just screenshot something. The third called the whole thing ridiculous and said I had done this on purpose. Grandpa was still chuckling, looking at the dog pictures. He said he thought the dog looked very handsome in his chicken costume. I agreed with him. The 3 cousins stormed off to complain to their parents. I could see them huddled in the corner, gesturing wildly and pointing at me. About 20 minutes later, my mom came up to me looking uncomfortable. She told me that my aunt and uncle wanted me to apologize to my cousins. I asked her what for. She explained that they were saying I deliberately left them off the phone case to embarrass them. I pointed out that I had sent 3 messages over 6 weeks asking for pictures, and they had ignored all of them. My mom mentioned that they said they had told me to use pictures from their social media. I responded that it wasn't my job to go hunting through their profiles. All they had to do was send me 1 picture. It would have taken 30 seconds. Dad came over and joined the conversation. He asked what was going on. Mom told him that they wanted an apology for the phone case situation. Dad asked if she meant the one with the dog in the sombrero and said that thing was hilarious. I explained that they were mad because I didn't use pictures from their Instagram after they refused to send me anything. Dad asked me to clarify. He wanted to make sure he understood that I had given them 6 weeks' notice, sent 3 reminders, and told them exactly what would happen if they didn't send a picture. I confirmed that was exactly right. He then asked if I had followed through with exactly what I said I would do. I told him yes. Dad looked over at my mom and said they weren't getting an apology. My aunt came walking over, her face red. She demanded that I needed to make this right and accused me of embarrassing her children. I told her that I had given everyone the same instructions and the same deadline. 6 people managed to send me pictures. Her kids chose not to. She insisted that they had told me to use their Instagram pictures. I reminded her that I had told them anyone who didn't send a picture would be replaced with my dog. They made their choice. Grandpa walked over, still holding his new phone case. He said he loved his present and that all 9 of his grandkids were on there. 6 beautiful faces and 3 beautiful dogs. My aunt turned to him and asked if he could seriously be okay with this. Grandpa replied that they had plenty of time to send a picture and that besides, the chicken costume was adorable. He winked at me and walked away, leaving my aunt sputtering. I never did apologize. Grandpa still uses that phone case every single day, and every time I see him, he makes a point of showing me the dog pictures and laughing about how good they look. My 3 cousins still won't talk to me at family gatherings, but honestly, I don't really care. I bought this convenience store and poured everything into fixing it up. New shelving, better lighting, actually decent coffee machines. I even hired a solid crew of people who actually gave a damn about their jobs. We weren't getting rich, but we were making it work. That Tuesday started like any other. I was covering the register because one of my workers called in sick, which was fine. I liked being on the floor anyway, staying connected to the day-to-day operations. Around 2 in the afternoon, this woman burst through the door like she owned the place. She walked right up to the counter with this folder clutched in her hand and slammed it down in front of me. She announced that she was here to take possession of this establishment. I asked her what she meant. She told me I heard her correctly and that this store was now under her control. She said she had the legal documentation right there. She flipped open the folder and shoved some papers at me. I picked them up and started reading. It was supposed to be some kind of lean paperwork, claiming she'd sued the store and won a judgment after being attacked by one of my employees about a month ago. I looked up at her and told her I didn't know what this was, but nothing like that had ever happened here. She insisted it did happen and that the court sided with her. She said that me and my filthy staff needed to hand over the register and get out right now. One of my employees, a college kid who worked afternoons, stood frozen by the coffee station. Another worker had stopped restocking shelves and was staring at us. I told her the paperwork looked fake and that I was going to need to call the police to sort this out. I reached for my phone on the counter. That's when she lifted the edge of her jacket and showed me the handgun tucked into her belt. She asked if we were going to have a problem here. She said it was this smug little smile like she'd just played her winning card. Like she thought flashing that weapon would make me roll over and do whatever she wanted. Here's the thing about owning a store in this neighborhood. You learn pretty quick that you need to be prepared. I'd had the store broken into twice in the first year. After the second time, I got my license and kept a shotgun under the counter in a quick access mount. My employees knew it was there. We'd even done drills on what to do if something serious went down. So when she showed me that gun, I didn't hesitate. I reached under the counter and pulled out my shotgun in one smooth motion, bringing it up and pointing it directly at her forehead. I told her that, actually, yes, we were going to have a problem if she didn't do exactly what I told her. Her face went completely white. That smug smile vanished like someone had wiped it off with a rag. I told my employee by the coffee station to call 911 right now. He fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it, but got it out. I instructed him to tell them we had an armed intruder attempting to rob the store. She started to say I couldn't do this, but I cut her off and told her to shut up. I said she was going to sit down on the floor right there and to do it slowly. She started to reach toward her belt. I told her not to even think about it and to sit down first. She lowered herself to the ground, shaking now. I could see the adrenaline wearing off and reality setting in for her. I told her to slide that gun away from her using her left hand with 2 fingers only, and to slide it toward me. She did what I said, pushing the weapon across the floor. My other employee, the one who'd been restocking, grabbed it and held it like it was going to explode. I told him to just set it on the counter behind him. I kept that shotgun trained on her the entire time. My hands weren't shaking. Years of dealing with difficult customers, violent shoplifters, and general chaos had given me a pretty steady nerve. The kid on the phone was talking to the dispatcher, telling them that yes, we had her contained and that the owner had her at gunpoint. He asked them to please hurry. It felt like forever, but was probably only 4 or 5 minutes before I heard the sirens. 2 patrol cars pulled up and 4 officers came through the door with weapons drawn. The officers shouted for me to drop the weapon. I told them I was the owner and that she came in here with a gun trying to take over my store. I said I was putting the shotgun down now. I set it on the counter carefully and raised my hands. The officers secured her first, cuffing her while she started babbling about how I'd assaulted her and how she had legal documentation. One of the officers asked if I had security footage. I told them yeah. Cameras cover the whole store and I could pull it up right now. They checked the footage right there on my back office computer. You could see everything. Her bursting in, slamming down the fake papers, lifting her jacket to show the gun, me defending myself and my employees. It was all crystal clear. The lead officer came back out front while his partner kept her in the patrol car. He told me that the footage was pretty definitive and they were arresting her for attempted armed robbery, criminal threatening, and fraud. He said they'd need me to come down and give a statement. I said absolutely, whatever they needed. After they took her away and I closed up early to go deal with the police paperwork, I found out the rest of the story from one of the detectives. She'd done this before at a small clothing boutique across town. She'd walk in with fake legal documents, intimidate the staff with a gun if needed, convince them she had legitimate authority, then empty the register and disappear before anyone figured it out. The detective told me her plan had been exactly that. Storm in, use the fake paperwork to establish authority, flash the weapon if anyone resisted, get access to the register, empty it, and leave. She'd figured on dealing with employees who'd be too scared or confused to push back. What she hadn't counted on was the owner being right there behind the counter. someone who knew for a fact that no lawsuit had ever happened, someone who wasn't going to be intimidated, someone who was prepared to protect his business and his people. She ended up facing multiple felony charges. I worked the night shift at a hospital. It's brutal. 12-hour shifts from 7 at night until 7 in the morning, 3 or 4 times a week. By the time I get off, I'm completely drained. My brain feels like mush. My feet are killing me. And all I want is to get home, maybe grab a coffee on the way, and crash for a few hours before I have to do it all over again. That morning was especially rough. We'd had 2 emergencies back to back, and I'd barely had time to sit down, let alone eat anything. My stomach was growling, my head was pounding, and I desperately needed caffeine. There's this coffee shop about halfway between the hospital and my apartment that I usually stop at. They've got a drive-through, which is perfect because I'm usually too exhausted to deal with going inside and waiting in line with the morning crowd. I pulled into the drive-through lane around 7:30. The sun was just coming up and there were already about 5 cars ahead of me. That's pretty normal for this time of day. Everyone's trying to get their morning fix before work. I didn't mind waiting. I turned off my podcast and just sat there, zoning out a bit, enjoying the few minutes of quiet before I had to face the chaos of getting home and trying to sleep while my neighbors inevitably made noise. The line moved pretty steadily at first. 1 car ordered and pulled forward. Then another. Then another. I was finally third in line, then second. Then it was just me and the car directly in front of me. That's when things got weird. The car ahead of me, a silver sedan, just sat there. The car in front of them had moved up to the pickup window. There was nobody at the order speaker. It was this woman's turn to pull forward an order, but she wasn't moving. At first, I figured maybe she was still deciding what to get. I gave her a minute, then another minute. The cars behind me were starting to pile up. I could see at least 4 or 5 vehicles in my rearview mirror. I leaned forward a bit and squinted at her car. I could see her through the back window, and she was on her phone. She had it pressed to her ear, and she was clearly deep in conversation. Her free hand was gesturing around like she was really into whatever she was talking about. She hadn't even noticed that the entire line had moved without her. I waited a bit longer, maybe 30 seconds. Still nothing. She was still on her phone, still talking, still not moving. The car that had been at the pickup window drove away. Now there were no cars between her and the order speaker. There was literally a 4-car length gap. She could have pulled all the way up, ordered, and been at the pickup window by now. I looked in my rearview mirror again. The line behind me had grown even longer. People were waiting. I was waiting. Everyone just wanted their coffee and to get on with their day. I'm usually pretty patient. You have to be when you work in healthcare, but I was exhausted, hungry, and really not in the mood for this. I decided to give her a little reminder that she needed to move. I tapped my horn. Not a long, aggressive blast. Just a quick, light tap. The kind of tap that says, "Hey, the light's green," or "Hey, we're moving now." I figured she'd look up, see the massive gap in front of her, feel a little embarrassed, and pull forward. Easy. That's not what happened. Instead, she put her car in park, then she opened her door and got out. I watched when she walked back toward my car. She was still holding her phone and her face was flushed with anger. Before I could even process what was happening, she was standing next to my driver's side window screaming at me. She yelled that I had no right to honk at her. She was furious, practically shaking with rage when she stood there next to my window. I just stared at her for a second, completely stunned. I lowered my window a bit because I honestly couldn't believe this was happening. I asked her what she was talking about, genuinely confused about why she was so upset. She screamed that it wasn't illegal to be on your cell phone in a drive-thru. She said I couldn't honk at her for being on her phone, like that was some kind of valid defense for holding up an entire line of people. I looked at her, then at the massive empty space in front of her car, then back at her. I told her I didn't care whether it was legal or not. I said she needed to either place an order or get out of the way because everyone was waiting. I gestured at the long line of cars behind me. Every single driver was staring at her now. Some of them looked annoyed. Some looked amused. One guy had his window down and was openly watching like this was the best entertainment he'd seen all week. I pointed out that all of us just wanted to get our coffee and move on with our day. Her face got even more flushed. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something else, then seemed to think better of it. She turned on her heel and walked back to her car. But just before she got in, she turned back and shouted one more time that it wasn't illegal, like that somehow justified everything. Then she slammed her door, put her car in drive, and finally pulled up to the order speaker. I watched when she placed her order, probably still fuming. When it was my turn, I pulled forward and ordered my usual. The person on the speaker sounded a little flustered, and I didn't blame them. They probably heard the whole thing. When I got to the pickup window, the barista handed me my coffee with a sympathetic smile. I thanked them, took a long sip, and drove home. By the time I got there, I was too wired from the confrontation to feel tired. I kept replaying the whole thing in my head, wondering what on earth made someone think it was okay to hold up an entire line of people just to finish a phone call. The whole incident was so absurd. Here I was, exhausted from a long night of saving lives and dealing with actual emergencies. And this woman thought her phone conversation was more important than everyone else's time. She got out of her car, walked back to mine, and screamed at me for giving her a polite reminder to move forward. And her only defense was that being on the phone in a drive-thru wasn't illegal. Like legality was the issue here, and not basic courtesy. I started smoking when I was 18, working my first real job at a warehouse. It's a nasty habit, I know, but I'm not here to justify it. I mention it because what happened that day outside the dollar store still pisses me off when I think about it. I've been having a rough week. My car needed new brakes, which was going to cost me at least $400 that I didn't have. My landlord was threatening to raise the rent again, adding another $75 to what I was already struggling to pay. And I'd just gotten my hours cut at work from 40 hours a week down to 25. Nothing major, just the usual grind of trying to keep your head above water when you're barely making it paycheck to paycheck. I'd gone to the dollar store to grab some cheap cleaning supplies because my apartment was starting to look like a depression nest, and I figured if I couldn't control my bank account, at least I could control how dirty my bathroom was. The strip mall where this dollar store was located wasn't anything special, just a typical row of shops you'd see in any small southern town. A nail salon, a phone repair place, a check cashing store, and the dollar store. The parking lot was always half empty, which made it a decent spot to run errands without dealing with crowds. I liked that about it. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Most people were at work, which is why the place was so quiet. I'd taken the day off because I needed to handle some errands that I couldn't put off anymore. So there I was, standing on the sidewalk right outside the dollar store entrance. I'd just lit up a cigarette and was about halfway through it when I noticed them. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just a family walking down the sidewalk toward me from the direction of the phone repair shop. But then I realized they were all staring directly at me. Not a casual look, not a quick look and then away. Full on, unblinking stares from all four of them. The mother, the father, and their two kids. The kids looked to be maybe 8 and 10 years old. They were all pretty overweight, moving slowly down the sidewalk in a tight formation like they were connected somehow. What really got me, though, was their faces. Their mouths were hanging open slightly, and they had this vacant, dead-eyed look about them, like they were zombies or something, and they were all locked onto me with this intense focus that made my skin crawl. I took another drag of my cigarette, thinking maybe they'd look away. They didn't. I turned around to check if there was something behind me. Maybe a fight breaking out in the parking lot or someone doing something crazy. But there was nothing. Just empty space and a few parked cars. Nobody else around. When I turned back to face them, they were still staring. All four of them, still walking toward me, still with those dead eyes fixed on me like I was the most fascinating thing they'd ever seen. It had been going on for maybe 10 seconds at this point, and I was starting to feel genuinely uncomfortable. I'm not the type to cause trouble or start confrontations. I keep to myself, do my thing, and try not to bother anyone. I wasn't dressed weird or doing anything strange, just standing there in jeans and a t-shirt, smoking a cigarette on a public sidewalk. But there's something about being stared at like that, especially by multiple people at once, that just triggers something primal in you. It's threatening, it's invasive, and it pissed me off. They were about 20 feet away now, still closing the distance, still staring with those open mouths and blank expressions. The father had his hands in his pockets. The mother had her purse clutched to her side. The kids were just walking in sync with their parents, all four of them moving like some weird unit. I'd had enough. I've never been one for conventional responses to weird situations. When someone's being strange with me, sometimes the best thing to do is be stranger right back. So I decided to give them something to really stare at. I took one more drag of my cigarette, letting the cherry burn bright orange. Then I stuck my tongue out as far as it would go, and I took my lit cigarette and pressed the burning end directly into my tongue. The pain was immediate and intense. I felt the cherry sizzle against my taste buds, smelled the faint scent of burning flesh mixed with tobacco. The heat was incredible, like touching a hot stove with the most sensitive part of your body. But I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I didn't make a sound. I just mashed that cigarette into my tongue and stared right back at them. I made eye contact with all four of them at once, swept my gaze across their faces, meeting each pair of eyes, challenging them to keep looking. I wanted them to see that I wasn't backing down, that their weird intimidation tactic or whatever the hell they were doing wasn't going to work on me. I wanted them to understand that they'd picked the wrong person to gawk at. The effect was instantaneous and beautiful. All four of them looked away at the exact same moment. The mother looked down at the ground like she'd suddenly found something interesting in the concrete. The father suddenly found the storefront very interesting, studying the dollar store window display like it was a museum exhibit. One kid looked at his shoes, shuffling his feet awkwardly. The other stared off into the parking lot, pretending to look at the cars. It was like I'd flipped a switch, like I'd broken whatever weird spell they'd been under. They kept walking past me in complete silence, not a word between any of them. No apology, no explanation, nothing. The kids didn't ask their parents why they were looking away. The parents didn't comment on what I'd just done. They just shuffled past like they hadn't just spent the last 15 seconds gawking at me like I was a circus animal. I kept my tongue out with the extinguished cigarette stuck to it until they were well past me. I wanted to make sure they knew I'd won this bizarre little confrontation. Then I finally pulled the cigarette away and spat on the ground. My tongue hurt like hell, and I knew it was going to hurt for days. I could already feel it starting to swell slightly. Small price to pay. I stood there for another minute watching them disappear into one of the other stores down the strip. I think it was the check cashing place. My heart was pounding and my tongue was throbbing with each pulse, but I felt oddly satisfied. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe they were just weird and didn't realize how creepy they were being. Maybe they had some condition I didn't know about that made them stare. But in that moment, I didn't care. They'd made me uncomfortable, and I'd made them uncomfortable right back. I threw the dead cigarette butt in the trash can by the door and went back to my car. As I drove home, my tongue kept hurting, reminding me of what had just happened. When I got back to my apartment and I looked at it in the bathroom mirror, there was a small circular burn mark right in the center of my tongue. It was red and angry looking, and I knew it was going to make eating difficult for a while. My tongue had a nice burn mark on it for about a week afterward. Every time I ate something, it stung. Every time I drank something hot, it hurt even more. But every time it hurt, I smiled a little, because I remembered the looks on their faces when they all turned away at once. I went back to that dollar store a few times after that. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.